This is the World Financial Report podcast. My name is Randy Marshall. Joining us is our financial and diamond expert, Harold Siegel. We're taping on October the 18th, 2018. Our time is 8:12 Mountain. We should say on a past podcast, there were birds in the background. Harold is outside, so if you hear birds, they are friendly. They're not dive bombing him. We'll just let them do their thing, and we'll be okay with it. Connect with Harold at 1-800-432-1022. The website is rarecoloreddiamonds.com. As we start the podcast, US dollar at 95.68, Canadian dollar 76.64, euro 114, pound 131, gold at $1,223, silver $14.55, gold-silver ratio is 84, platinum is 825, palladium 1,066, WTI 68.69, Brent 78.84, nat gas 326, Bitcoin in US dollars 64.28, Bitcoin in Canadian 83.85. Now the Dow this morning is at 25,578, S&P 2809, NASDAQ 7600, TSX 15,529. Connect with Harold at rarecoloreddiamonds.com or 1-800-432-1022. Get the companion to the podcast. That is our free weekly newsletter. The big news of the week in Canada. As of yesterday, Wednesday, marijuana is legal. To use a pun, no, the country has not gone up in smoke yet, sort of. Hoopla over cannabis legislation fell flat in the investing world yesterday, with shares of most of the major publicly traded licensed producers sagging as the end of prohibition played out across Canada. Meanwhile, evidence of demand overwhelming supply is very strong. By yesterday afternoon, the Ontario Cannabis Store's web portal was displaying a warning in red text that high demand is resulting in a wider window for deliveries to consumers, and there are reports of sold-out products from coast to coast. I know here in Edmonton, Global Television and 630 CHED, other news outlets had pictures of lineups, high demand, to use a pun. As you drive around the city, there are many signs. I went and picked up a friend from a colonoscopy. You know you're getting older when you pick up a friend from his colonoscopy. Everything was good except he has hemorrhoids. It's a positive, but there are
bummer, but
it's more ways than one. There are signs everywhere saying, remember, if you're high, it's the same as drinking and driving. Keep that in mind. Haven't really dealt with the edible situation. So far, so good on day number 2 of legalized marijuana in Canada.
Well, it's going to bring in a ton of money, that's for sure. If these places are selling out that quickly and they're having supply and demand problems already, it's going to bring in a lot of tax money for Canada. And that's why these countries are doing it and cities are doing it in the United States. You know, started off with Colorado, and Colorado's making huge money. So now you're having other states follow through. Canada, I think, did it the right way. They nationalized it. So, you know, it's you can purchase it anywhere in Canada, whereas obviously in the United States that's not the case. And again, we'll have to see what happens. I think it's a situation where you buy the rumor and sell the fact. At the beginning, when they were just getting ready to sell, the prices of the pot stocks were skyrocketing. But again, now that it's actually there and happening, they're starting to settle back down. So we'll have to see what happens. It's like anything. You know, you try to buy in prior to the market making its move. It's not always easy to do, but it was certainly obvious in this pot stock market, you know, prior to it coming public.
There were a lot of people that made money if they got in early and they held on. The real test now, will these companies be able to make money? From what I understand, the government will set the price that these companies can charge, and how much of a margin will they make as profit? Will it be profitable when you take everything into account? Having a building, paying staff, insurance, lights, utilities, everything taken into account, will they make money? That will be the real issue going forward. In the United States, something we've kept an eye on for you. The U.S. federal budget deficit rose in fiscal 2018 to the highest level in 6 years as spending climbed. According to the Trump administration, the deficit jumped to $779 billion, $113 billion or 17% higher than the previous fiscal period, according to a statement from the Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and the Office of Management of Budget Director Mick Mulvaney. It was larger than any year since 2012 when it topped $1 trillion. The budget shortfall rose to 3.9% of U.S. gross domestic product. Deficit increased by $70 billion, less than anticipated in a report published in July, according to two officials. Federal revenue rose only slightly by about $14 billion after the Republicans chopped corporate taxes and some for individuals. Outlays climbed by $127 billion or 3.2%. The big spike, no surprise, defense spending, Medicaid, Social Security, disaster relief. So the United States is in a situation where going forward, they will have massive debt and deficits. The deficits will run about $1 trillion. The debt right now is, and I checked it on our debt clock that we put in our free weekly newsletter from the United States, usdebtclock.org. It's $21.6 trillion. So it's a very large number. Harold, you've talked about China being a concern. In our free weekly newsletter, a story chart of the week, China may have $5.8 trillion in hidden debt with titanic risks. China's local governments may have accumulated 40 trillion yuan, 5.8 trillion of off-balance sheet debt, or even more, suggesting further defaults are in store according to the S&P Global Ratings. The potential amount of debt is an iceberg with titanic credit risks, according to S&P credit analysts led by Gloria Liu. They wrote in a report on Tuesday. Much of the buildup relates to local government financing vehicles, which don't necessarily have the full financing backing of local governments themselves. With the national economy slowing and Beijing set quota for issuance of local government bonds not being enough to fund infrastructure projects to support regional growth, authorities across the country have resorted to loans to raise financing, according to the S&P. And with these loans, they're walking a tightrope between deleveraging and transforming their businesses into more typical state-owned enterprises. But Harold, that is a lot of money, $5.8 trillion in hidden debt. Massive debt in the United States, hidden debt in China. Will there be a debt bomb at some point that will be the next financial crisis for the world? What are your thoughts?
Certainly pointing out that way, or looking that way. Add to the fact that China is now having issues with the United States on tariffs and things like that, makes this even worse. So, but this was the most obvious thing. If China is buying almost all of the United States debt through their bonds, and now the U.S. is attacking China, it's the most obvious thing in the world that China is going to stop doing business in that fashion. They're not going to help the U.S. out. They're not going to buy the U.S. debt. The bond sales, the U.S. is going to have to buy back their own bonds, because I highly doubt that any other country, Japan buys some, but the fact is that most countries don't have the money to do this anyway. So I think that Trump really hurt the U.S. in that fashion, in the sense that you start a fight with China and you don't expect them to retaliate. That's just foolishness. So there's no doubt in my mind that China is going to continue to not buy our bonds. It's going to make the debt even worse, and it's going to force the U.S. to print or borrow money to buy their own debt, to buy their own bonds. It sort of doesn't make any sense. It just makes no sense as to why Trump would have done what he did, knowing that there was going to be some form of retaliation. And it's retaliation that's going to hurt the U.S. in a huge way. It's going to hurt them in their pocketbook. And just mark my words on this, the U.S. is going to have to go in to their own auctions and buy their own bonds. It sort of defeats the purpose of doing a bond program.
Connect with Harold at rarecoloreddiamonds.com or 1-800-432-1022. Get our free weekly newsletter, the companion to the podcast as well. Learn about blockchain and rare colored diamonds, in particular, Argyle pink diamonds. As predicted on the last podcast, Sears did file for bankruptcy protection. Richard Sears, a railroad station agent, started selling watches as a side business in North Redwood, Minnesota. The following year, he moved to the company's first Chicago location and hired watchmaker Elva Roebuck. The two started a catalog business selling watches and jewelry in 1888, incorporating under the Sears Roebuck name in 1893. Sears, once America's most iconic retailer, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy early Monday. The company says it will close 142 stores before the end of the year. Its CEO, Eddie Lampert, will step down. Lampert has blamed the company's decline on media, shifts in consumer spending, and the rise of e-commerce, among other reasons. But analysts and critics say the company's demise is a result of years of underinvestment in stores. Some stores have shown significant signs of decay, such as crumbling walls, cracked floors, and collapsing ceilings. Sears employees have hung bed sheets and shower curtains to hide the empty store space. 132 years. Here in Canada, Sears went out of business. Looks like, Harold, they're going out of business in the United States. Very sad.
It's a sad day. It truly is a sad day. A company that's been in business for 130 years cannot make it any longer. It's the end of an era. It's a very, very sad thing to see. Sears is one of the most famous names in all retail. And again, to see its demise like this right in front of our eyes is sad. But it's the way of the world now, and it's the way that things are going, and a lot of that has to do with Amazon, because it's not only Sears that is in trouble on that type of basis, it's most of the large retailers. You know, the fact is that the young millennials prefer to buy online and not go into the brick and mortar stores. That's hurting the stores. You know, the fact is that the rents are very, very high. When Sears closes and other major retailers close, it's going to hurt the commercial real estate business. In actual fact, the retail business is dying off anyways. So how is the commercial real estate business going to survive? Because in all honesty, you know, these small mom and pop shops really don't make it in today's marketplace. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But, you know, Sears certainly is leading the way in this way, and there's other major retailers that will go out of business over the next several years, and it appears that we're heading into a new way of doing retail business, and it's over the internet.
Businesses such as Walmart, they're always changing and growing. To give you an example, Walmart saves $200 million by changing its light bulbs and $20 million with a new floor wax. Small changes yield big results. Walmart says switching to LED lights in its parking lots cut its annual energy costs by $200 million. A change in floor wax it used cuts costs by $20 million a year because the floors needed to be buffed less often. Those little things do add up, and you have to give Walmart credit. I know here in Canada they're always changing, trying to serve the customer and grow. Ultimately, it means survival to compete with the Amazons of the world. We haven't forgotten about what happened down in Florida with the hurricane. The mayor of Lynn Haven, Florida, Margot Anderson, drove through the neighborhoods of her small Bayside city on Sunday to deliver some unwelcome news. The electrical power knocked out nearly a week ago by Hurricane Michael might not be restored for 2 months. Behind the wheel of a black golf cart, she made the rounds as shell-shocked neighbors emerged from houses with busted windows and walls and front porches, the damage from the punches of fast wind, rushing waters, and toppled trees. Just about every tree is down, said Ms. Anderson, a fifth-generation citizen who was elected mayor of Lynn Haven 3 years ago. The power lines are destroyed, the transformers are destroyed, the power grid is destroyed. We'll have to start over. This is the dire reality particularly in the neckline of rural towns and coastal communities across northwest Florida that Michael gutted. Residents already reeling from the storm's unexpected brutal winds now face the prospect of spending weeks relying on generators, burning expensive fuel, or depending on aid from emergency workers. Seeing the pictures online, Harold, just utter devastation. Your heart goes out to those people. That storm just wiped out almost everything. And how do you start again? It's very difficult to see.
You know, we've done many shows where you have, enlightened us as to when an emergency arises, most Americans don't have $500 in the case of an emergency. So what do you do in this case? I mean, your house is totally destroyed. Everything around you is destroyed. You're not going to have electricity for months on end. If you don't have $500 for an emergency, a normal type of an emergency, well, how do you get through this? I mean, you're not talking, 10 or 20 people that, can go stay in a shelter or stay with relatives or whatever. You're talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that are affected by this. Where do they go? And don't forget, this is Florida. This is not, you're talking in Florida that the temperatures today are 88 degrees. It's hot, it's humid, there's no air conditioning, there's no electricity, there's very little food and water. How in the world did these poor people get by? You see it on TV, and on one hand, your heart goes out for all these people and what they're going through. On the other hand, people that haven't experienced something like this before, are, obviously very happy that they didn't have to go through something like this. However, we have. The fact is, I live in South Florida, Canadian living in South Florida. When I first built my home here in South Florida, the same year we got hit with Hurricane Andrew, the biggest Category 5 storm ever to hit Florida. Now, fortunately, it was in Miami, and I'm up closer to, Boca Raton area, so we didn't have any damage, but the people in Miami got wiped out. Now, they're saying that this particular storm was rivaled that Hurricane Andrew and did similar type of damage, just totally destroyed everything in its path. And the fact is, when we got hit with Wilma, I remember when the eye of the storm was over the house, and then a couple hours later when it was gone and we started opening up the home again, we were devastated. Everything was gone. The pool area was totally destroyed. It was all screened in. That was totally destroyed to the ground. The fences around my home, totally gone. All the trees, totally gone. No electricity. It was frightening. And I was prepared for this. We had generators. We had water. We had food. We have a built-in barbecue. So we thought that we would get through this with no problem. 2 days later, we got lucky to get a cell signal, and were able to go up to Orlando and spend 2 weeks up there because we still had to do business and survive when there was no electricity, no food, and no water down here. So unless you've lived something like that yourself, it's very, very difficult to put yourself in a position of what those people are going through at this particular point. It's total devastation. It's losing your home. It's losing all of its contents. It's losing the pictures and memories of your family growing up. And it's something that most people will never, ever get over. The devastation, the fact that the depression sets in and you realize that you have no money, no electricity, no place to live, no nothing. It's a horrible situation. And again, being in South Florida, I know what these people are going through. And our hearts go out to them. Again, we've donated money to them, but the fact is that they're going to have a lot of problems for a long, long time until that gets rebuilt.
Without a doubt, people forget about Puerto Rico. You don't hear about Puerto Rico anymore. The Trump administration did say, Donald Trump, the president, said, we're doing a great job down there. Well, they recently came out, FEMA, and said they did a poor job. Puerto Rico is part of the United States. It does need to be rebuilt, does need the help of the U.S. government. What will happen with Florida now. Will Donald Trump, a lot of votes in Florida, with the election, midterms about 19 days away. On top of it, an election in 2 years where he gets to get reelected as president. Will it be different for the people of Florida? I hope so. Let's not forget about Puerto Rico. They were devastated as well. Connect with Harold at 1-800-432-1022. The website is rarecoloreddiamonds.com. rarecoloreddiamonds.com. Speak with Harold about blockchain and the opportunity in Argyle pink diamonds. One of the reasons that the stock market has been booming, a little known fact, the biggest buyer of shares during the bull market hasn't been individual investors, hedge funds, or large institutions. It's been corporate America itself. Encouraged by low rates and record profits, U.S. companies have bought back $4.3 trillion of their own stock, according to Yardeni Research. That enormous source of demand has helped the S&P 500 to quadruple off its financial crisis low. But what happens when the stock buybacks get turned off? To avoid tripping insider trading rules, companies typically avoid buyback of shares during the 2 weeks prior to reporting earnings. Last week's market storm, and we saw a major pullback in the markets, occurred during the darkest part of these so-called blackout windows. Right now, we're pretty much at a trough in corporate liquidity. That according to Keith Parker, head of U.S. equity strategy at UBS. Parker said that previous market tailspins, including the scary sell-offs in February, well as one in April, coincided with buyback blackouts. Almost to the day, he said. Buybacks have been especially powerful lately. Flush with excess cash from tax cuts and the strong economy, U.S. companies are on track to repurchase $1 trillion of stock this year for the first time ever, according to Goldman Sachs. Last month, Goldman Sachs even warned that the looming blackout period posed a near-term risk to the market. So, are buyback blackouts causing the markets to nosedive? I saw this story, really opened my eyes to how the market has gone up since 2009. A lot of it has been done on buybacks. Corporations stop the buybacks. What will happen to the stock market? A very scary thought.
You know, the thing is, during that particular time from 2008 and 9 on, most of the general public lost in the stock market. Don't forget, it fell by 50%. So because, you know, the novice investor doesn't know how to get out of positions, or the emotion of a market plummeting would scare them and they would just sit tight or sell at the wrong time. You know, we know that the middle class basically got wiped out during 2008, 9, and 10. They didn't have the money to get back into the market. So the fact is, when the Dow went from 6,500 and started moving higher, it was with much less participants because the people didn't have the money anymore. They got wiped out before, and they were afraid to get back in. So who was buying the stocks back then that propelled the rally from 6,500 to 26,500? It was the corporations, you know, starting to buy back their own stocks, and the hedge funds at that point. But don't forget, the hedge funds just finished getting killed in the market. Almost all companies got killed in the market. Investors, I mean, it fell from 14,000 to 6,500. Nobody did well except for the very few that were short the market. So in the stock market, just like in a commodity, for every winner there's a loser, for every buyer there's a seller. When the Dow dropped from 14,000 to 6,500, where the general public lost all their money, there was a group of people that made all that money, because that money just doesn't disappear into air. It's made by somebody. Somebody has to short the market in order for the market to go down. And evidently the position was so huge that this group of investors that made this money, and it wasn't the hedge funds and it wasn't the individual investors. It could have been like the Bilderberg Group or one of those type of groups that are hidden, that do the opposite, contrarians basically, of what everybody else is doing. So if trillions of dollars were lost during that particular market move, trillions of dollars were made, but by a very, very small amount of people. And I think it was a consortium of investors that made that money. It was an absolutely phenomenal move in the market. And then the move from 6,500 to 26,000 has happened over the last 10 years. It's not like it just happened overnight. It gradually built and built and built, and now we're looking again at probably one of the largest bull markets ever in history.
Speak with Harold about Rare Colored Diamonds, his website, rarecoloreddiamonds.com. We believe there's a great opportunity in Argyle pink diamonds. The mine shutting down in 2020. They recently had their Argyle pink tender for 2018. They think they'll have 2 or 3 more of those tenders, and that is it. The tender closed October the 10th. We should have the results very, very soon. But with the mine shutting down, that creates 90 to 95 of the world's pink diamonds. When they're gone, that's an opportunity if you have a pink diamond from the Argyle mine in Western Australia. Speak with Harold, 1-800-432-1022, the website rarecoloreddiamonds.com. On the diamond front this week, we love diamonds that have a story behind them. Marilyn Monroe's rare Moon of Baroda Canary Yellow Diamond is for sale. The 24-carat jewel is on view at Christie's Los Angeles through October 20th before going to auction November 27th. It's gorgeous, said Marilyn Monroe when she first gazed upon the Moon of Baroda. The diamond, a rare 24.04-carat canary yellow gem pulled from the legendary Golconda mine outside Hyderabad. Monroe was on a publicity tour for her breakout 1953 comedy Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, with its unforgettable song Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, when the Moon of Baroda became her best friend on loan from Meyer Jewelry Company in Detroit. Christie's found the current owner. They asked him to sell. He said no. They kept going back year after year after year. Finally, he said yes. Side note, in 1990, Christie's New York sold the stone for $297,000, but the current owner estimates its value between $500,000 and $750,000. I think that's very low, in my opinion. But this diamond has amazing provenance. It goes on sale November 27th. I think it goes for a lot more than $500,000 to $750,000, Harold. What are your thoughts?
I'd be shocked if it sold for that price. I really would. I think you're 100% right. Not that the diamond itself, but the provenance alone is like Elizabeth Taylor piece. We have one of Elizabeth Taylor's necklaces, which is her iconic yellow and white diamond daisy necklace and matching earrings. Now, the thing about it is that Elizabeth Taylor sketched this earring and necklace set, and she signed it, and it was on a scrap piece of paper. That particular piece of paper with her signature and the sketch is worth $250,000. Just her signature. So you could imagine what Marilyn Monroe's diamond ring would be worth. It's going to be very similar to what happened with Elizabeth Taylor. The prices are going to be astronomical for high-quality pieces, but it's really the provenance and the owner that makes this piece so valuable. So what an exciting piece. I cannot wait to see what that goes for. But like you, Randy, I'd be shocked if it sold for under $1 million.
My grandfather, he worked for the CN Railway. Marilyn Monroe made a movie in Jasper, Alberta, Canada. It was called The River of No Return. It was with Robert Mitchum and Rory Calhoun. My grandfather, he was a conductor. How did Marilyn Monroe get to work every day shooting this movie? On a train. And my grandfather got to know and speak with Marilyn Monroe every day. And they had a little bit of a friendship going. And she allowed him to take a number of pictures of her. He even signed a picture to my grandfather, Charlie. So it's a great family collectible.
That is a great story. And you have that picture?
We have that picture. I'll have to send you a copy, Harold. It's a neat little movie. If you get a chance to watch it, it's not very complicated, not long. Very, very cool. My grandfather, yes, that was his brush with greatness, meeting Marilyn Monroe. Christie's Geneva, as we've mentioned before, is auctioning off the Pink Legacy. The estimate on it is $30 to $50 million. Christie's Geneva will present the Pink Legacy, the largest and finest pink vivid diamond ever offered at auction by the company on October 13th. It weighs just under 19 carats, 18.96 carats. They believe it will sell from $30 to $50 million. Harold, this is one that we'll keep an eye on as well. This Pink Legacy, it's a big diamond, a big price. Nothing would be finer to see it go for $50 million.
Wow, would that be unbelievable? And just to put that into context, The Argyle mine, now this diamond did not come from the Argyle mine because the Argyle mines produces 95% of the world's pinks, but it's very, very rare to find an Argyle pink diamond over a carat. Over 2 carats, one of the rarest diamonds you'll ever see. So, and those diamonds can sell in the multi-millions of dollars. So to now see a diamond that is almost 20 carats, vivid in color, which is the highest saturation in color, and probably a very good clarity grade, again, you're talking about a $30 to $50 million asset. Fact is that the very few people in the world that could ever afford to buy an asset like that, that diamond will sell. But you're talking about an asset for 30 to 50 million. And somebody who would lay out that type of money, they would only do it because they anticipate that it will continue to increase in value, and down the road will look to sell it again and make a profit. So again, it's just an amazing thing to see a diamond of that caliber really come up for sale. Cannot wait to see the pictures on it and see what that diamond actually does sell for. You're talking about one of the largest vivid pink diamonds in history, and that is going to sell for a mammoth number. And a great investment.
Speak with Harold about investing in rare-colored diamonds. Rarecoloreddiamonds.com is his website. Ask about blockchain, how that works. It's going to revolutionize the financial world and many other areas of our world. 1-800-432-1022. As we get down to the end of the podcast, sort of a strange story that I found. New York, last week, marked its first weekend without a shooting in 25 years, if you can believe it. Maybe everyone was coming to Canada to get high. I'm guessing. The power of Netflix. We talked about how Amazon pretty much has driven Sears out of business and mismanagement of Sears. Put this in perspective. Netflix is adding almost as many subscribers in 1 year as HBO did in 40 years. I watch Netflix. Netflix subscriber growth is incredible. Netflix is on pace to add 27.4 million subscribers this year, a new record for the company. Think about it. They've added more subscribers in 1 year than HBO in 40. And HBO and ESPN, these companies are losing subscribers by the day to Netflix and Amazon Prime and others. Paul Allen, the billionaire co-founder of Microsoft, died on Monday. Investor, entrepreneur, and philanthropist, gave away $2 billion. He founded Microsoft with Bill Gates in 1975. The two met as fellow students at a private school in Seattle. Allen left the company in 1982 after being diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease. His fortune was worth around $20.3 billion at the time of his death, but very charitable, giving away $2 billion. He had so many different interests. He did own the Seattle Seahawks. Won't hold that against him. He also owned the Portland Trail Blazers. He loved sports. He was involved in so many different things. Sad to see Paul Allen pass away. Very, very sad. I wonder, Harold, what's going to happen now with Seattle Seahawks and Portland Trail Blazers, if they will be sold or be held in a trust of some sort. I wonder what's going to happen there.
Not sure, but both very, very valuable franchises. Very sad to have heard the news that Paul Allen had passed on. He was a crusader. He was an innovator. He was a brilliant man, and look what he produced in his life, and very generous. And the world's going to be, is really going to miss this guy. He really did a phenomenal job while he was on Earth.
Here in Canada, marijuana became legalized. It was October 17th, a Wednesday. So far, life is continuing on here in Canada. We all haven't just stopped working, if you know what I mean, and gone to 7-Eleven to buy some Doritos. Harold, any final thoughts?
Metals market ran a little bit this week. We saw it go down to as low as $11.90. We saw it go back up to $12.25 when, there was issues with the stock market type of thing. But the market is going to trade in a range at this point until something vital happens that's going to push this market higher. And again, as we talk about on a weekly basis, the relationship between gold and the dollar. So while the dollar is strong, again, gold is going to have a lot of problems rallying, but we did see a strong rally this week that took gold from $11.90 in that area all the way up to $12.30, which goes to show you when the market is depressed, how quickly it can come back. But again, there's still a big spread in gold. It's going to have to break $13.80 on the upside in order for me to turn bullish on gold. Want to wish everybody a wonderful weekend and a very profitable day.
Speak with Harold about investing in rare-colored diamonds, rarecoloreddiamonds.com, the website, telephone number 1-800-432-1022, 1-800-432-1022, the website, rarecoloreddiamonds.com. Ask about Argyle pink diamonds and what blockchain is and what it can do for you. That's it, another edition of the World Financial Report podcast. My name is Randy Marshall. For Harold Siegel, we will talk to you next week.